Good morning, everyone. Pastor Steve here. This is an explanation of Genesis chapter 9. So let's have a look at what Genesis chapter 9 actually says. Um, we read it the other day, but it's God is now bringing Noah and his family out of the ark and back onto land. And he reiterates what he says in the book of Genesis when he spoke to Adam and Eve about being fruitful and increase in number and fill the earth. So he's what God is doing here. He's reestablishing the commands and the promises and so forth that he gave to Adam at the beginning of creation, to Noah and his descendants. He also said that the fear and dread of mankind would be on all the animals of the earth. And that's why we see many animals today, wild ones in particular, that are very hesitant around human beings. This is sort of something that God put into the animal kingdom at that time. And then something changed slightly here is that he said in verse 3, everything that lives and moves about will be food for you, just as I gave you the plants, the green plants, I will now give you everything. But you must not eat the meat that has its lifeblood still in it. All right, so this is something that changed in their diet right there, because prior to this, as it says there, they were just vegetarians. Mankind wasn't originally eating meat at the beginning of creation up until the time of after Noah's Ark, however long that was after God created the world. So this is when people began to eat meat, and so like people tend to say, some people say that you shouldn't eat meat because it's wrong. There are some Christian groups like this, but you can see here that God actually gave them the permission to do this. So don't get hung up about whether you're eating meat or vegetables if you're doing the wrong thing one way or the other. It's more important that we give thanks to God, and that we eat in a way that is honoring to God. He talks about the lifeblood still being in the meat. That's why we shouldn't eat foods that have like blood in it. You know how some people will have certain meat cooked, but there's still a lot of blood in it. The reason why God says this is because the life is in the blood. When you lose all your blood, you lose life, and this is a symbol of life. And so God's trying to get a little bit of a message across there about how sacred life is here. And then straight away he goes into that whoever sheds human blood, by humans shall their blood be shed, for in the image of God, has God made mankind. All right, so he again here is making a command here, making it known that killing people is wrong. And that still right through to today. This is why we know murder is wrong. Now, we might try and make laws like euthanasia or abortion acceptable in our time, that they are human rights, or to die with dignity, as they use these words. But to deliberately take someone's life has always been wrong. We see the first murder was Cain killing Abel. It wasn't acceptable to God for whatever reason. And this is just confirming that God takes very seriously the murder of another human being, because we are made in his image, and we ought not to be playing God and killing other people, even babies in the womb. What's he say here? Now, he establishes a covenant with them and their descendants after you. Now we're all descendants of Noah, and what God did, he established this covenant, and he put that sign in the sky of the rainbow, and that's why the rainbow is often associated with peace, because it's a new beginning here. And what God is doing here, he's put this covenant there so that whenever they see rain again, that they won't freak out and think that the whole world's going to be flooded like it was before. Now, this is also a clue why we know that this was a worldwide flood and not just a local flood, because we've had many devastating floods that have been local in some certain region or area. Some portion of the country, wherever you live, there are floods at different times, and some bad floods. Australia has a lot of floods from time to time and devastates a certain region, but it doesn't flood all of Australia. It doesn't flood all of the world. So this is a clue there that this was a worldwide flood and not just a little flood in some local area and has been turned into some bigger story. So he sets the rainbow in the sky there. So whenever you see that rainbow, it's a reminder to us that God has kept his promise, because since the time of Noah to now, the whole world has not been flooded. There have been localized floods, but not worldwide floods. All right, so whenever you see that, it's a reminder that God is keeping his promise to us. Now, it tells us a story here that after they came out of the ark, that Noah planted a vineyard, and he drank some of the wine and he became drunk, and he lay uncovered inside his tent, and Ham saw his father naked, and he went and told his two brothers outside. But Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it across him, and they didn't look at their father's nakedness. Now, there's a couple of things we can learn from here, that even men that are men of God can drink too much alcohol and get drunk. And when you get every story you find about in the Bible, people when they drink alcohol to the point of getting intoxicated, it's never a good thing. It always leads to something that it shouldn't lead to. And in this case, Noah was so drunk that he didn't even know what he was, laying down naked, and his son came in and made fun of him to the brothers by the sound of it. And there are some suggestions from some commentaries that he did more than that he did something sexual. That's why it was such an offensive thing. Whatever the reasons are, he didn't show proper respect for his dad, but it was connected to alcohol, being drunk. It didn't make Noah an evil man, so to speak, but he wasn't wise in drinking too much alcohol, and it's not condemned here, but the fact that this happened and it's associated with alcohol is a lesson for all of us, that if you're going to drink alcohol and you're going to get drunk, then things can happen that you don't intend, as we see throughout history. And if you look at the Old Testament and the New Testament, there's always prohibitions against getting drunk. And so I personally don't drink alcohol at all anymore, partly because I used to drink a lot before I became a Christian, and partly because I want to set an example to others that they don't need to have alcohol. And also, trying to lead a church, if I'm loose with alcohol, then I can hardly encourage others to be careful with alcohol, because it's a bad thing if they see me participating in that. So each of us is going to have to come to their own understanding of that. But if you do a deep dive on alcohol in the Bible, you'll find that it was every time that it talks about being intoxicated or getting drunk, drinking strong alcohol for the purposes of pleasure and getting tipsy or drunk, it's never associated with a good thing in the Bible. It's always condemned, actually. So maybe if you are tempted to be loose with alcohol, especially as a Christian, seek God about it, ask him what he would want you to do with it, and come to your own conclusion with that. As for me, I abstain from alcohol completely. That way I can't get in trouble with alcohol, and something like this, what happened to Noah, can't happen to you, or whatever the consequences might be if you're getting drunk, if you stay away from it. All right, anyways, when Noah woke up, he realized what had happened, and he cursed his his son, and he praised the other two that showed respect for him. Now, realize here that this wasn't God cursing his son. This was Noah cursing his son. And sometimes when we read things in the Bible, we see it there and we just assume that that's got God's recommendation from God, or it's God's in favor of doing that because a man of God has used these words. Not always the case, but to be sure, his son did suffer consequences his descendants' time through the people of Canaan later on in history. And then it tells us about Noah's death. As I said earlier, the people in the book of Genesis lived, first part of Genesis up to Genesis 9 and 10. They lived lifespans that were much greater than ours. And that was because life was different before the flood. Sin hadn't completely contaminated the human body to the point of causing us to die younger. Plus, their diet was different, as we've just learned. There were various different things. And I believe also that after the flood, that the environment, the climate was much harsher. And people then, you'll find after Noah's death and after this flood from here on in, people lived lifespans that are consistent with how many the lifespan of what we would be considered normal now. So anyway, that's Genesis chapter 9. Don't forget, you can share this with people. You can go to our Facebook web site as well and follow what the church is doing there, plus following this on YouTube. And you can ask questions, put some comments if you like on those different social media things. And we'll continue doing this. Obviously, this is a long project. It's going to take quite some time to get through the book of the Bible, but we've made a start. And I just want to thank you for listening. And if you really want to get into the Bible, then continue following this through the years that we do this, and you'll have a reasonable understanding of what the Bible says from Genesis to the book of Revelation. Okay, God bless you, everyone. Have a great day.